Chapter 26. Dad was so kind, Art said. So kind. He was like some kind of trusting animal, always looking for the good in people, even when there wasn't any. He gave Christina a hard shove in the back. She nearly lost her footing. Keep moving, Art instructed. He had forced them out of the cabin, their hands still tied behind their backs, motioning with the pistol. He guided them onto a dirt path that led up a sloping hill, through a tangle of trees and vines. The sun was beginning to lower itself to their right. The air was still hot and sticky. Tiny white insects swarmed about their heads. Keep moving, Art urged impatiently, walking a few yards behind them, keeping the pistol trained on their backs. I want to show you something interesting. Take us to the police, please, Christina pleaded. She and James walked with their eyes to the ground, watching out for upraised tree roots that broke through the narrow path. Police aren't much good in these parts, Art said matter-of-factly. Besides, they take too long. I tend to believe in quick justice. What do you mean? Christina asked with a trembling voice. You'll see, Art said curtly. Keep walking. It's just up on this bluff. Where is he taking us? James wondered, raising his eyes from the ground occasionally to look around. Large, leafy vines grew over the dirt path. Behind them, barkless trees, their roots poking out through the mud, bent low, their sinuous branches twisting into each other, allowing only splotches of sunlight to filter through. It's all swamp, James thought. What does he want to show us in a swamp? Christina brushed against him as they climbed the path. She stared up at him, trying to exchange glances. But James turned sharply away, scowling, and took long strides to get ahead of her. She's played me for a sucker long enough, he told himself. He thought of all the kisses, that night at Paul's house, in the back seat of the car as Terry drove. And then she tries to convince Art that I'm the one who killed his father. I'm not your sucker anymore, Christina, James thought bitterly. He swallowed hard. I'm probably going to die because of her, he realized. The unfairness of it struck him all at once, nearly taking his breath away. He stopped in the middle of the path. I'm going to die, for no reason. No reason. Keep going, Art barked impatiently, waving the pistol all the way to the top. White gnats buzzed around James's face. One flew into his eye. He couldn't raise his hands to get it out. Christina again tried to signal him, but he ignored her, walking a few steps ahead, stepping over a low vine stalk, shaking his head hard to try to discourage the gnats. A friend of mine owns all this, Art said, close behind, sounding a little out of breath. That's his cabin back there. He and I use it sometimes when we go fishing. Christina and James made no reply. The three of them were nearly at the top of the path. That's how I knew about this place, Art continued, as if they were having a conversation. He snickered. You didn't think I just happened to come by accident, did you? Again, neither Christina nor James replied. No, my friend Jack and I, we used the cabin a lot. Of course, I never knew it would come in this handy. Where is he taking us? James wondered, raising his eyes to the top of the hill. It's just swamp and more swamp. What could be so special up here? Is he just taking us here to shoot us? A hidden place way back in the swamp where we won't ever be found? Please, Christina begged, stopping and turning back toward Art. Please? Please? The police? My friend Jack has a very unusual hobby, Art went on, almost jauntily. Please? I don't know anyone else who has a hobby quite like this, Art said, motioning Christina forward with the pistol. Anyone I ever bring here finds it quite amazing. Quite amazing. I have more money, Christina pleaded. I can get more money, lots of it, from my parents, please. There are some things you expect to find back here, Art continued, a little more out of breath, and there are some things you don't expect to find. Now, I've known Jack for a lot of years. We were in school together, you see, and all the time I've known him, he's always been a little squirrely, a little off-center. How much money do you want? Christina cried. I can get it for you. My parents are loaded. Please, please listen to me. But this is a strange hobby, even for Jack, Art explained, stepping over a fallen tree limb. Well, well, here we are. He grinned at them. We've gone as far as we can go. The path ended abruptly, James saw. The trees on either side just stopped, as if they had come to the end of the world. The end of the world, James thought. I guess that's what this is. I can make you rich? Really, I can? Christina persisted. They were standing on the edge of a sharp precipice, James saw. He was hot and uncomfortable, perspiring from the climb. His wrists, bound so tightly, ached and throbbed. Reluctantly, he lowered his head and peered down. There was water down below, a large green-brown pond, shadows playing over the still water. "Take a look," Art urged. "It's deeper than you think." Christina shuddered and let out a short, frightened cry. "Believe it or not, it's a freshwater pond," Art said, stepping up right behind Christina. She turned, a look of terror on her face. He stared over her shoulder, looking down at the water. "It has to be fresh water, you see, because of Jack's hobby," he said. "Take a look." Christina and James obediently stared down. The water was still murky. James detected low ripples, nothing more. "Piranhas need fresh water," Art announced matter-of-factly. "That's why Jack needed to build his cabin near a freshwater pond, for his hobby. You see, Jack raises piranhas here. You've heard of piranhas." James nodded but didn't reply. A cold chill coursed down his back as he began to realize what Art had in store for him and Christina. "Please?" Christina whimpered. "Piranhas are a very interesting hobby, don't you think?" Art asked jovially. "Jack keeps this little pond of his well stocked. Well stocked. Hey, see that one jump?" "Please?" Christina begged. "Please?" "I just have to criticize Jack for one tiny thing," Art continued, cruelly ignoring Christina's pleas. He continued to stare down over the sharp edge of the precipice. "Jack's a good old boy, but he has one fault. He just doesn't feed his pets enough. Hear what I'm saying? He keeps his piranhas real hungry. In fact, you might say he starves them." James exhaled loudly. "Did he bring us here to talk us to death?" he wondered angrily. "He's deliberately torturing us." James tried once again to free his hands, but the cord cut into his wrists. He gasped loudly from the pain. The sound made Art turn his attention to James. "Too bad about you, son," he said softly. "You sort of got caught up in a place you didn't belong." "Are you going to let me go?" James asked, eyeing Art coldly. Art shook his head. "Can't do that, can I? There's a lesson here, son. A lesson about hanging out with the wrong kind of women. But I guess the lesson isn't going to do you much good." "Please?" Christina repeated, whimpering, her shoulders heaving. "Tell you what," Art said to James. "I'll give you a break." "A break?" James asked hesitantly. "Yeah, I'll let you go second." Art snickered loudly, as if he had cracked a really funny joke. Christina was panting loudly, hyperventilating. Her entire body shook. She turned her eyes from the infested pond below back to Art. "Your friend Terry had quite a time of it down there this morning," Art told Christina. "You should have heard all the splashing." He removed a pocket knife from his trousers and pulled open the blade. "Hold still," he instructed them both. "I'm going to cut your hands free. Give you a fighting chance. We'll see if you can swim for it." He sliced the cord off Christina's wrists. Then he worked on James's. "I just don't believe Jack," Art muttered. James shook his freed hands, trying to get some feeling back in them. "He keeps those guys down there so hungry." He replaced the knife in his pants pocket and raised the gun to Christina's back. "Do you want to jump or be pushed?" he asked her, his expression instantly turning hard, his voice low and menacing. "Please?" Christina cried, shaking all over. "Jump or be pushed," Art repeated. Christina grabbed her hair and tugged at it frantically. "Oh, please?" "Okay, I'll decide," Art said. He drew back both arms, and then, with a burst of power, gave Christina a hard push. Chapter 27. As Art pushed her, Christina dropped to her knees. "No," Art cried out in horror, but he couldn't stop himself. His motion carried him forward, over the edge of the precipice. He reached out with both hands as if trying to grab onto something, but he grabbed only air. James saw the startled look on Art's face, the surprise quickly replaced by fear, and then he watched as Art plummeted down, his arms flailing frantically, helplessly. Art hit the green-brown water with a loud smack. A perfect belly flop, James thought grimly. Smack. Waves tossed up, then crashed down with a splash. Art disappeared under the rolling, murky waters. The still pond suddenly came alive. Peering down at the tossing water, James saw small shadows appear just under the surface, dozens and dozens of dark ripples starting rapidly, all in the same direction. Art reappeared inside a rippling circle. First his head emerged, and then both arms, reaching up like someone trying to climb a ladder. Countless darting shadows closed in on him from all sides. Art's arms thrashed the water. He opened his mouth in a silent scream just before his head dipped again below the surface. The waters tossed wildly. Art thrashed and kicked, stirring the water, sending out wave after wave. His head resurfaced. His body jerked and twisted as if he were fighting an invisible enemy. His legs kicked frantically. His hands slapped the surface. And then James, staring down in horror and fascination, saw a deep cut on Art's back, and then another, and cuts on Art's arms, and a deep gash on his side. Struggling desperately, bobbing and twisting in the choppy water, his arms churning in place, Art went flailing under the surface again. It's like he's being sucked down, James thought. And then he saw that the water was red now, red as blood, red as Art's blood. Swirls of red in the tossing froth, puddles of red, circles of red widening over the surface. Art resurfaced one more time. One arm reached for the sky. The other hung lifelessly in the water. Chunks of flesh had been eaten away. Art floated in a circle of dark blood. His head bobbed on the surface like a wooden buoy, cut and bleeding. James saw a deep gash at Art's throat, saw bone exposed at Art's shoulder, saw the fleshless legs float to the top, no longer kicking. And with Art no longer kicking and thrashing, no longer moving, no longer making a sound, James heard the clicking of teeth, the chomping of flesh, the steady chewing and tearing, and then the dark circle of blood blanketed what was left of Art's body. The body sank from view. The dark shadows continued to snap and chew. James finally forced himself to turn away as Art's body sank below the waters, for good. The terrifying sound of the clicking teeth, the tearing flesh still in his ears, James bent down to Christina. She hadn't changed her position. She was still on her knees, her hands covering her face, her entire body trembling. "He's dead," James reported softly, kneeling beside her. She didn't react. At first, James thought she was crying. But as Christina lowered her hands from her face, he saw that her face was dry, her eyes clear. "Art's dead," James repeated. "The piranhas. They chewed him to pieces." "How horrible," she whispered, staring at the ground. "Can you get up?" James asked. He reached for her arm to help her to her feet. "We have to get out of here." She raised her eyes to his, her expression bewildered. "Out of here?" James nodded. "We have to go to the police or something. We have to tell them about Art and Terry." Christina continued to stare at him. She made no attempts to stand up. Then, shaking her head, she lowered her eyes to the ground. "Christina, are you okay? Can you get up?" He stood up again and reached to help her. "Let's get out of here," he urged. He shuddered, thinking about the clicking teeth, the widening pool of blood. "I want to get as far away from here as I can." "But you can't," she said quietly. "Huh?" "You can't leave," Christina said. She leaned forward and picked up something from the ground at the edge of the precipice. Art's pistol. She pointed it up at James. Her hand was steady now, he noticed. She was no longer trembling. "You can't leave, James," she said. "You have to take a swim, too?" Chapter 28. "Hey, wait!" James took a step back, then another. Christina climbed quickly to her feet. "Don't run away," she said quietly. She aimed the pistol at his chest. "But why?" he cried. "Stupid question," she said, sneering. "You're stupid, James." "Yeah, you're right," he agreed. He raised his hands into a T, signaling for a timeout. Okay. Let's forget the police. Forget Art. Forget Art's father. Everything. Let's just get out of here." Christina shook her head. "Not us. Just me," she said coldly. "We'll go our separate ways," James said, staring over her shoulder to the shadowy, tangled woods. "We'll just split. We'll never see each other again. We'll never talk about any of it, to anyone. Okay?" She lowered the pistol to her waist. "Not okay," she said flatly, her face expressionless, peering at him coldly through tangles of curls. "Christina, I promise, my lips are sealed." He moved his finger across his mouth as if zipping it up. "Be reasonable." "I am being reasonable," she replied. "You're the only other person who knows what happened this week, James. The only one who knows about the old man, the stolen car, about Art." "Yes, I know, but—" James continued to stare over Christina's shoulder. "So if you take a swim with the piranhas, that leaves only one person who knows," Christina said. "Me, and I trust me. I'm the only one I trust. I'm walking away from here, James. I'm walking away, and you're not." She raised the pistol and motioned with it toward the precipice edge. Dive in, James. Now. Christina, wait. Dive in. Don't make me shoot you first. Christina, maybe you'll get lucky. Maybe you'll drown before the piranhas attack. And what if I won't dive? He took a step toward her. She steadied a pistol, aiming it at his chest. I'm going to count to 3. If you don't dive, I'll shoot. Then I'll push you over the side. Wow, you're cold, James said, shaking his head. You're cold. I have to be, she said softly. Stop stalling. I don't believe you'll pull the trigger, he said. Don't test me, she snapped back. You'll lose. She motioned with the pistol toward the precipice. 1. Come on, Christina. You and I. She uttered a scornful laugh. You really are stupid, James. 2. You're not going to shoot me, he insisted. Yes, I am, she replied. And then I'm out of here? No, you're not, declared a voice from behind Christina. Chapter 29. Christina wheeled around at the sound of the voice. A ragged, blood-soaked figure staggered toward them. Christina recognized her immediately. Terry, she screamed. Dragging one leg, Terry lumbered closer. James had been watching her over Christina's shoulder, waiting for her to make her move. Now he saw that she was carrying a large white rock. Terry, Christina repeated. But how? Terry's dark hair hung down in damp tangles around her face. Her arms and legs were lined with jagged, deep cuts. Her denim cutoffs and midriff top were torn and blood-stained. One side of her face was caked with brown, dried blood. Ignoring Christina's cries of surprise, Terry staggered forward. Terry, no! What are you doing? Christina cried, taking a step back toward the edge of the precipice. Glaring at Christina, her eyes wild with fury, panting loudly with each step, Terry raised the rock. Christina took another step back. Terry, don't! Groaning from the effort, Terry lifted the rock above her head, preparing to heave it at Christina. If Christina takes one more step back, she'll fall over the edge, James thought, watching the scene in silent horror. She's so frightened and so surprised to see Terry alive, she's forgotten about the pistol in her hand. I'm saved, James thought gratefully. One more step back, Christina. One more step, and Terry and I will be out of here. With a loud cry, Terry pulled back the stone and started to throw it. One more step, Christina, James silently urged. One more step back. But to James's surprise, Christina lunged forward instead. Letting the pistol fall, she grabbed Terry's upraised arms and swung her over the cliff edge. Terry gasped as he heard the sickening splash. Terry's gone this time, he thought. Christina had already picked up the pistol. No one left to save you now, she said, breathing hard. She pointed the pistol to the edge. Go ahead. Jump. Chapter 30. Jump, Christina shouted. James felt the anger rise up from his chest, felt the red anger push away his fear. He took a step toward the precipice edge. Then another. Jump, Christina screamed. Then James kicked as hard as he could. Christina couldn't move in time. James's shoe struck her wrist. She howled in pain and surprise. The gun flew up and over the precipice. They both heard it splash down below. And then they were wrestling, struggling at the edge, groaning and crying out as they stood grappling, pushing, tearing at each other, trying to shove the other over the side. No, 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 Christina shrieked, as James wrapped his powerful arms around her waist, tried to push her off balance. Over, 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 the word repeated silently in his mind as he tried to wrestle her down. Oh, he uttered a pained wail as she brought her knee up hard to his stomach. He gasped for air, his muscles collapsed. He dropped to his knees. I'm dead, he thought. I'm dead now. She stood over him, ready to finish him off. He lowered his head and saw a hand raise up behind Christina, a hand from below, a hand reaching up from the cliff. The hand grabbed Christina's ankles and pulled. Christina's mouth opened into a wide O of horror as she lost her balance and was pulled over the side of the precipice. James heard the splash, and then the frantic thrashing, the cries for help, the churning water, the click of piranha teeth, the screams, more and more pained and pitiful. And then silence. Leaning over the edge, he saw Terry clinging to a tree root sticking out from the cliff. He reached down and grabbed one hand, then the other, and then he pulled with all of his remaining strength. Help me, Terry moaned, crawling to safety on the ground, collapsing onto her stomach. She raised a bleeding arm up to James. Please? I heard you fall, James uttered, struggling to clear his head. I heard the splash. That was the rock, she told him. The rock fell. I grabbed the side. There was a tree root. I grabbed it and, oh, please, help me. There's got to be a hospital around here, James said. We'll take Art's car. With the sound of Christina's final anguished cries still wailing like a police siren in his ears, he bent to lift Terry to her feet. The two policemen nodded to James as they walked out of Terry's room. They had already questioned James for hours. He had patiently told them everything he knew, everything that had happened to him since being picked up by Terry and Christina. Now they were finally leaving Terry's hospital room after questioning her. James watched them head down the long hospital corridor, glancing at their notepads as they talked. When they turned a corner and were out of sight, he stepped into Terry's room. She smiled at him. She had stitches along one cheek. She had the bed sheet pulled up nearly to her chin. I just came to say goodbye, James said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. She motioned for him to pull up the folding chair against the wall. No, I've really got to be going, he told her. Why did hospitals make him sweat so much? Thanks for getting me here, Terry said shyly. I guess you're sorry you ever hitched a ride with Christina and me. Yeah, I am, he replied honestly, then smiled. I tried to get Christina to go to the police, Terry said, frowning. I really tried. After she hit the old man, I didn't want to go on. I wanted to turn ourselves in. That's what we were arguing about all the time. James scratched his head. He leaned against the wall. I'm so stupid, he said, grinning. I thought you two were fighting about me. Terry laughed. Ouch, don't make me laugh, she cried. How can you be so conceited? James shrugged. I didn't want to stop and pick you up, Terry said. I knew Christina and I were in real big trouble. I didn't see the point of involving you in it, but Christina thought it would be a hoot. She said she could use a distraction. I was a distraction, James cried. We fought about it, but I lost. That's why I was so cold to you in the beginning. I was trying to warn you that you had gotten yourself into trouble. What about the night at the motel? You came to my room and... Christina made me do that, Terry explained. We were fighting in the motel about whether or not to dump the car. Finally, she won. She wanted you out of the way so she could go hide the car. And then, after we got back from the woods, she... Her voice broke. Her eyes filled with tears. She asked me if I wanted to see where she hid the car. I said no, I didn't care, but she insisted I come with her. She led me into a different area of woods, very swampy. Then she said she couldn't take the chance of me wimping out. I was too big a risk, she said. She hit me with a heavy tree branch, hit me again and again. I went down. I pretended to be dead. She thought she killed me, so she went back to the motel. So cold, James said softly. So cold. He shifted his weight, crossing his arms over his chest. Then what happened? I was pretty badly beat up, Terry told him, smoothing the bed covers with one hand. I looked up. I guess I was real groggy, and there was a man staring down at me. It was Art. He took you to the cabin? Early this morning. He pushed me into the piranha pond. It was a nightmare, but I got out. He didn't know what a good swimmer I am. Even I didn't know I was that good. Somehow, I managed to get out. Art didn't even wait to see if I was dead. He was in such a hurry to drive back and pick you up. And then you waited in the swamp? James asked. I think I passed out for a while. I must have been in shock. Then I heard voices. I saw you and Christina. I saw what was happening. She swallowed hard and closed her eyes. You know the rest. You saved my life, James said. You saved mine too, Terry replied, opening her eyes and smiling at him. I guess that makes us almost even. She glanced down at his canvas bag. Where are you going now? Further north? No, he shook his head. Back to Key West. Back home? Yeah, there's a girl there. Her name's Melissa. I hurt her really badly. I want to go back and... You hurt her? Well, I broke up with her. It hurt her really bad. You really are a conceited pig, Terry laughed. Her remark caught James by surprise. He stopped short, a thoughtful expression freezing his face. Terry was probably right. Melissa was hurt, but not as badly as he wanted to think. He laughed too. Guess I'll be going. You'll be okay? He picked up his bag. Yeah, my parents are on their way, Terry said. He started out the door. How are you getting home? Terry called after him. Hitching, he told her. Good luck, she said. This has been a Nightfall Audiobooks production of The Hitchhiker by R.L. Stine, a point horror novel. Book 11. Hi, this is Chris with Nightfall Audiobooks, and thank you for joining me for my production of The Hitchhiker by R.L. Stine from the Point Horror series. If I haven't mentioned it already, when I sat down to begin this channel, this book was on the top of the pile for me to do. I remember this book very, very fondly, and the scene at the end with the piranhas really stuck with me. I forgot all about the circumstances in between, and that's because it's mostly forgettable. It's just day-to-day kind of stuff. We established that James is a hothead and he's very quick to anger and violence. All the news reports that you hear on the radio about a hitchhiker beating up someone and then that person dying on the road, that is meant to frame James even further as being unstable, but it really wasn't him, it was Christina the entire time. Which sets you up for R.L. Stine's classic twist. It's not the person that you think it is, it's the person that you would never suspect. The bit with the piranhas was really cool. I liked the imagery of Art getting chewed to little pieces. If you've ever seen a piranha in an aquarium or someone's fish tank at home, they are mean, mean little fish. They've got these huge red bellies, and you can see their teeth, very pointed teeth, sticking out of their face. They are really, really nasty fish. And what a way to go. When you have a whole school of them, they will devour anything that you throw into that pool, and they will strip it down to bone in no time. I don't believe Terry with her explanation of, I didn't know how good of a swimmer I was, and that she managed to get away. I think the piranhas would have hampered her somehow. They would have disabled one of her legs, rendered her ineffective. I don't think anybody could have outswum a whole pool full of piranhas, but that's what the story wanted us to do, and I wanted us to believe, so we have to believe it. I just think it's unlikely. The other thing that really got me was Christina stole Paul's money, and then she hid the car. Why didn't she just use Paul's money to get away? And the only reason why they were hitchhiking again is because Art had to pick him up and then exact his revenge, so the end of the story could happen. But the thing is James doesn't know how much money Terry and Christina has. And why was Christina so quick to leave the hotel? It's just really strange. Why didn't Christina say, hey, Terry's missing, the car is missing, I've got some money, let's go rent a car, we'll drive around for a while, and then we'll finally go home or we'll go to the police or something like that. Not this let's keep on hitchhiking crap. That doesn't make any sense. Overall, I still really enjoy this novel as much as I did when I was a kid when I read it for the first time. Do I recommend it? Oh, absolutely. This is awesome, awesome R.L. Stine point horror, done very, very well. You get a sense of the open road, and having a book take place mostly inside a car, kind of daring because how do you keep it interesting? But he did a very, very good job. You can really put yourself into their shoes and feel their isolation and their despair when Art has them tied up in a cabin. That was insane. And then he marches them out to the edge of a cliff and says, hey, there's piranhas in there. Jump in or I'm going to push you. Wow. So what should I read next? I don't know. Send me an email, nightfallaudiobooks@gmail.com. I am also on YouTube @nightfallaudiobooks. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the join button. Any help would be greatly appreciated. I am also on Patreon, patreon.com/nightfallaudiobooks. So tell your friends, tell your mom, tell whoever you think would like to listen to me tell them tales from R.L. Stine. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.